Our next speaker is Dr. Professor Shantanu Guha sir. He is the head of the department cardiology, the Medical College Hospital in Calcutta. Sir doesn't need any introduction. He's a doyen of cardiology in Eastern region as well as in West Bengal. So Dr. Shantanu Guha sir, requesting you to start your session, please, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me start sharing my screen. Mr. Chairperson, sir, and dear colleagues, I have been asked to discuss uncontrolled hypertension, how to use a synergistic combination. This uncontrolled hypertension is in fact an entity. So I will concentrate this discussion mostly on resistant hypertension with a few words on refractory hypertension and go about the synergistic combination later on. Some definitions are important here. Resistant hypertension is a BP that remains elevated above goal in spite of the concurrent use of 3 or more antihypertensive agents of different classes, commonly including a long-acting CCB, RAS blockers, and a diuretic at maximal or maximally tolerated dose and requires the exclusion of the common causes of pseudo-resistance. What is pseudo-resistance? The factors that can cause a falsely elevated blood pressure in a patient on 3 or more antihypertensive agents, like improper BP measurement technique, white coat resistant hypertension, under treatment, clinical inertia, medication non-adherence, etc. What is clinical inertia? The failure to establish appropriate targets and escalate treatment to achieve treatment goals. Some other terms: controlled resistant hypertension, BP that is controlled on 4 or more antihypertensive medications at maximal or maximally tolerated dose. Apparent treatment resistant hypertension is a term used when medication dose, adherence, and out of office BP is not documented or accounted for, and pseudo resistance cannot be excluded in a patient on optimum antihypertensive treatment. White coat resistant hypertension, we all know, when the office BP is uncontrolled, but out of office BP is controlled in a patient who is on 3 or more antihypertensive agents. Refractory hypertension, BP that remains uncontrolled on maximal or near maximal therapy, that is, use of 5 or more antihypertensive agents of different classes, including a long-acting thiazide-like diuretic like clothalidone and spironolactone, do not control the blood pressure. Looking at the prevalence of resistant hypertension in US in a survey in 2005 to 8, it was around 21%. Looking at the risk factors for having resistant hypertension, according to the odds ratio, it is a CKD followed by the black race, diabetes, obesity, coronary artery disease, cerebrovascular disease, older age, and male sex. This study is from the Mayo Clinic proceedings. So what is pseudo-resistant hypertension should be evaluated and ruled out before concluding the diagnosis as resistant hypertension. I have already told the possible causes of the pseudo-resistant hypertension, like poor adherence to prescribed medication, white coat effect, poor office BP measurement technique, and clinician inertia resulting in inadequate dose. And I can add up another thing, that is calcification of the brachial arteries, that also causes a pseudo-resistance. If you look at the prevalence of the common causes of the pseudo-treatment resistance, under treatment tops the list. This is the most frequently encountered cause of the pseudo-resistant hypertension. Potential mechanisms of the excessive fluid in patients with resistant hypertension, because this is the main mechanism of resistant hypertension. They are hyperaldosteronism, obesity, African American race, chronic kidney disease, and high dietary salt intake. While approaching a patient with resistant hypertension, one needs to identify and treat secondary causes if one can be found out. The common causes of secondary hypertension are obstructive sleep apnea, renal parenchymal disease, primary aldosteronism, and renal artery stenosis, while the uncommon causes being pheochromocytoma, Cushing's disease, hyperparathyroidism, and aortic coarctation. One need to have a look what medications the patient is on, because there are several medicines which raises the blood pressure. These should be stopped. Medicines like NSAID, oral contraceptives, some antidepressants, steroids, decongestants, erythropoietin, cyclosporin, etc., raises the blood pressure. The adherence to a lifestyle modification cannot be overemphasized. This is a cornerstone of any treatment protocol. When a non-adherence has to be addressed, it requires an intensive counseling, looking into the socioeconomic and the educational level of the patient, because without these aspects, counseling is going to be futile. Let us now come to the possible combinations. For treatment of hypertension, the 5 targets for drug therapy have been identified. They are the RAS system, addressed by ACE inhibitors and ARBs, vessel wall, dilated by CCBs, alpha blockers, and direct vasodilators like hydralazine and minoxidil, volume dependent action, treated with diuretics, thiazide-like, and loop diuretics, and spironolactone, sympathetic nervous system, both beta blockers and alpha beta blockers, and central sympatholytics, that is the central alpha agonists like clonidine, guanfacine, etc. Let us see some examples of a synergistic combination therapy. A CCB and a RAS blocker, they have a synergistic action and an additive action, because CCB causes vasodilatation, decreases renal perfusion, increases renin level, which is blocked by RAS blockers. Similarly, diuretics and RAS blockers have a similar type of action. Diuretics decreases renal perfusion, increases renin, and which is blocked by RAS blockers. Beta blockers and CCBs also have synergistic action, as activation of the sympathetic by the CCB is blocked by the beta blockers. Diuretic and beta blockers also have synergistic action. Beta blockers blunt the increase in the plasma renin level that is induced by diuretics, and the diuretics decrease the sodium and the water retention that is caused by the beta blockers. There are some drugs which should not be combined. Beta blockers and ACE inhibitors, beta blockers and centrally acting drugs, beta blockers and verapamil or diltiazem, ACE inhibitors and ARBs, 2 drugs from the same class. Beta blockers and ACE inhibitors should not be used for the treatment of hypertension, but they are used in the treatment of coronary artery disease, particularly in patients with LV dysfunction. Let us see what the guidelines say. This is the familiar slide from the ESC guideline. They have recommended a dual combination as the initial therapy in most of the patients, excepting those with very mild hypertension and in very old or frail patients. Initial combination is a RAS blocker plus CCB or a diuretic. If not controlled, a triple combination, combine all the 3, RAS blocker, CCB, and diuretic. If still not controlled, combine this triple combination with spironolactone, add spironolactone, or sometimes other diuretic alpha and beta blockers. Role of beta blocker is a little peculiar in most of the guidelines. They consider beta blocker at any treatment step when there is a specific indication for their use, like heart failure, angina, post-MI, atrial fibrillation, etc. Look at the International Society of Hypertension guideline. This is different from the ESC guideline. They recommended a dual low dose combination as step 1, a combination of ACE inhibitor, RAS blocker plus CCB. Dual full dose combination of RAS blockers and CCB as a step 2, if it is not controlled with low dose combination. If still not controlled, add up a diuretic along with RAS blockers and CCBs. This guideline has relegated diuretic to step 3. Step 4 is a resistant hypertension, a triple combination plus spironolactone as per the ESC protocol. This is the Indian guideline. I find it a very useful guideline. They segregated the patients into younger and older. Cutoff is 55. In step 1, RAS blockers for younger, CCB or diuretic for the older. Not controlled. Step 2, combine the two. RAS blockers plus CCB or diuretic. Still not controlled. Combine all the three, RAS blockers, CCB plus diuretic. Resistant hypertension, step 4, add MRA spironolactone, and if side effects, use eplerenone. Step 5, add alpha blocker or beta blocker. In special situation, centrally acting drugs or direct vasodilators. I think most of us practice in this fashion, and I find it really useful guideline in our armamentarium. Now coming to the management of resistant hypertension. Step 1, exclude other causes of hypertension, including secondary cause, white coat effect, and medication non-adherence. Plus, ensure low sodium diet. Without this, no regimen is going to be useful and successful. Maximize lifestyle intervention. One very important thing, more than 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep at night. So it's extremely important. Other things are overall dietary pattern, weight loss, exercise, etc. This is well known. Plus, optimize 3-drug regimen. Ensure adherence to 3 antihypertensive agents of different classes, RAS blockers, CCB and diuretics, and maximum or maximally tolerated dose. Diuretic type must be appropriate to the kidney function. BP not at target. Come to step 2. Substitute optimally dosed thiazide-like diuretics. That is, substituted thiazide diuretic if was used by a thiazide-like diuretic like clothalidone or indapamide in maximally tolerated dose. Still, BP is not controlled. This makes this patient a case of a resistant hypertension and opens up the scope of adding up mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists, MRA spironolactone or eplerenone. One should be cautious if the eGFR is below 40. In fact, if it is below 45, one should be careful about hyperkalemia. And if the potassium level is above 4.5, one should be very cautious about their use. Before going to the next step, step 4, I like to go through the Pathway 2 study, which paved the way for the inclusion of mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists in most of the guidelines today. Pathway 2 study, it's a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover study. Patients with resistant hypertension on A, C, and D, they were randomized to spironolactone, doxazosin, bisoprolol, or placebo. And home systolic blood pressure was measured at 6 and 12 weeks. The effect of these drugs on blood pressure was observed. Primary outcome was home systolic blood pressure difference. It was seen that spironolactone was superior to doxazosine and bisoprolol and also placebo. So for the home systolic BP difference was concerned, and all the p-values were highly significant. Change from baseline was again much more with spironolactone when compared to doxazosine and bisoprolol. Secondary endpoints were the clinic systolic blood pressure, which was again significantly favored spironolactone. So spironolactone has become this fourth drug to be added to the in the list of treatment for resistant hypertension. Next step is, after adding spironolactone, if the blood pressure is still not controlled, check the heart rate. Unless it is below 70, add beta blocker like metoprolol or bisoprolol, or combine alpha beta blocker like labetalol or carvedilol. If beta blocker is contraindicated, consider central alpha agonist like clonidine patch weekly or guanfacine at bedtime. If these are not tolerated, consider once daily diltiazem. BP is still not at target. Add direct acting vasodilators like hydralazine. Start with 25 milligrams 3 times daily and titrate upwards, but don't exceed 150 milligrams per day, because above that dose, the risk of lupus-like syndrome increases. And if this patient is having HFrEF or heart failure or LV dysfunction, in that case, this should be added up in addition to isosorbide dinitrate or mononitrate. BP still not at target. Substitute minoxidil 2.5 milligram 2 to 3 times daily for hydralazine and titrate upwards. The dose varies from 5 to 100 milligram daily in divided doses. If BP is still not at control, consider ongoing experimental studies like renal denervation and carotid baroreceptor stimulation. Remember, these are experimental studies. This has not been random. There is no state guideline recommendation for that. Most of the authorities, they agree that with minoxidil, majority of this refractory hypertensions can be controlled. Two things needs attention. Hydralazine and minoxidil causes reflex tachycardia, and a beta blocker should be used along with it, and they cause fluid retention, so a diuretic should be used. Minoxidil causes a lot of fluid retention, so a loop diuretic should be used along with it. With minoxidil, beta blocker, and a loop diuretic, many of these refractory hypertensions can be controlled, and one can withdraw the other drugs gradually if it is permitted. So only drug therapy is not enough. I again emphasize this point. It should be complemented with strict lifestyle modification measures at all stages. Without that, hypertension is extremely difficult to control. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.